I've been using Windows for most of my life. Like a lot of people, I didn't choose it because I loved it, I chose it because it was there. Every computer I touched growing up had Windows on it. School computers, office computers, internet cafes, gaming PCs, all Windows. And for years, I just accepted the slow boots, the forced updates, the random restarts, the creeping feeling that my computer was never really mine. But eventually, curiosity kicked in. I kept hearing people say things like Linux is faster, Linux respects your privacy, and my favorite one, Linux can look just like Windows now. That last line hooked me. So I decided to do something slightly insane. I tried every major Windows-like Linux distro I could reasonably install and use as a daily driver, and I committed to using each one seriously. Same tasks, same workflow, same expectations. Browsing, coding, writing, media, light gaming, system customization, updates, and daily stability. I wasn't looking for nostalgia or novelty. I wanted one thing, a Linux distro that could genuinely replace Windows for a normal user without making them feel like they'd switched planets. And after weeks of installs, reinstalls, tweaking, breaking, fixing, and sometimes swearing at my screen, only one survived. I started with Linux Mint because, let's be honest, that's where everyone starts when they say they want Linux, but not the pain. Mint has a reputation for being boringly good, and when I installed it, I immediately understood why. The Cinnamon desktop greets you with a taskbar at the bottom, a start menu-like launcher, system tray icons, and a general layout that feels extremely familiar. If you dropped a Windows 7 or Windows 10 user into Mint without telling them, they'd probably just assume it was a customized version of Windows. Using it felt safe. File Manager behaved the way I expected. Settings were laid out clearly. Updates were calm and respectful, not screaming at me to reboot. Performance was smooth even on older hardware. For basic tasks, Mint was fantastic, but as the days went on, small cracks appeared. Cinnamon, while familiar, felt a bit heavy at times. Not slow, but not snappy either. Some animations felt slightly dated. Hardware support was good, but not flawless. And while Mint tries very hard to protect users from breaking their system, that safety net sometimes made me feel boxed in. It was comfortable, yes, but it also felt like Linux with training wheels permanently attached. I wanted something just as friendly, but a little more confident. Then I moved on to Zorin OS, which markets itself very boldly as the Windows replacement. And visually, Zorin absolutely delivers. The first boot was impressive. Polished icons, smooth animations, a clean and modern interface that looked like Windows 10 and Windows 11 had a stylish Linux cousin. Zorin even lets you switch layouts with a single click, mimicking different versions of Windows. From a pure visual standpoint, this was the most convincing Windows clone I tried. Everything felt intentional. Apps opened quickly, the system felt responsive, and the overall experience was premium. But the more I used it, the more I realized that Zorin is amazing at first impressions, and slightly less amazing once you dig deeper. Some features are locked behind the paid Pro version, which didn't sit right with me. The software selection was fine, but not as flexible as I wanted. Updates were stable, but sometimes slower to arrive. And while it looked like Windows, it didn't quite behave like it in subtle ways. It wasn't bad at all. In fact, for many people, Zorin would be more than enough. But for me, it felt like a beautiful shell wrapped around something slightly restrictive. After that, I tried Kubuntu, which uses the KDE Plasma desktop. This was where things got interesting. KDE Plasma doesn't just try to look like Windows. It tries to out-Windows Windows. Taskbar, system tray, start menu, window behavior, keyboard shortcuts. Everything can be configured to an insane degree. Out of the box, Kubuntu already felt familiar, but once I started tweaking it, I realized this was a power user's playground. Want Windows 10 behavior? Easy. Want Windows 11 layout? Also easy. Want something better than both? Absolutely possible. Plasma is fast, incredibly lightweight for how polished it looks, and packed with features. File management was excellent. Multitasking felt smooth. The system respected my choices. But KDE has a reputation, and unfortunately, some of it is earned. With great power comes great complexity. There were moments where settings overlapped or behaved inconsistently. Some apps didn't match the system theme perfectly. Occasional minor bugs popped up, nothing catastrophic, but enough to remind me that this was a highly complex environment. Kubuntu felt like Linux for people who love to tweak and understand what they're doing. I loved it, but I also knew that recommending it to a complete beginner could be risky. Next on the list was Linux Lite, which is often recommended for Windows users with older machines. Linux Lite is very straightforward. It uses a lightweight desktop that feels similar to older versions of Windows, especially Windows 7. Installation was fast. Performance was excellent. On low-end hardware, this thing flies. Everything felt snappy and efficient. But visually, it was clear that Linux Lite prioritizes function over form. It works, but it doesn't try to impress. The design felt a bit dated, and while that might not bother everyone, it mattered to me. I wanted something that felt modern, not just usable. Linux Lite is fantastic for breathing life into old PCs, but as a long-term daily driver for someone used to modern Windows aesthetics, it felt like a step backward rather than a lateral move. Then came MX Linux, another distro often praised for stability and performance. MX Linux surprised me. It's fast, incredibly stable, and packed with useful tools. The desktop layout is somewhat Windows-like, though not a perfect match. The taskbar, menus, and general workflow are familiar enough. MX feels engineered, almost industrial. It doesn't try to be flashy. It tries to be reliable, and it succeeds at that. Updates are solid. The system almost never hiccuped. But visually and ergonomically, MX Linux felt more like Linux with a Windows flavor, rather than Windows, but better. It's an excellent distro, but the Windows transition aspect wasn't strong enough for what I was testing. I also spent time with Elementary OS, even though it doesn't advertise itself as Windows-like. And honestly, that was its downfall for this experiment. Elementary is beautiful. It's clean, minimal, and very Mac OS inspired. Using it felt elegant, but also restrictive. Window controls, multitasking, and system behavior were nothing like Windows. For someone coming straight from Windows, Elementary would feel alien very quickly. It's a great distro, but completely failed the Windows-like test. At this point, I had tried the friendly one, the pretty one, the powerful one, the lightweight one, and the rock-solid one. Each had strengths, each had weaknesses. None of them felt like the clear winner yet. And then I installed the last contender, the one I didn't expect to dominate as hard as it did. Fedora KDE Spin. From the first boot, something felt different. Fedora KDE didn't try to imitate Windows directly, but it didn't fight it either. The layout was familiar enough to feel comfortable, yet modern enough to feel fresh. KDE Plasma on Fedora felt more refined than on Kubuntu. Updates were faster. Software was newer. Performance was incredible. Animations were smooth, window management was flawless, and everything just worked. Hardware detection was excellent. My Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, audio, and display scaling all behaved perfectly without manual tweaks. Fedora's approach to updates was firm but fair. No forced restarts, no surprise behavior, just clear communication. The system felt professional, like it was built for serious work. As I used Fedora KDE day after day, it slowly earned my trust. Coding was smooth. Multitasking was effortless. I could open dozens of windows, switch desktops, snap apps, customize shortcuts, and everything remained responsive. KDE's file manager, Dolphin, is hands down one of the best file managers I've ever used on any operating system. It made Windows Explorer feel outdated. The settings panel was massive, but well organized. I could make the system behave exactly how I wanted without hacks or third-party tools. And unlike some other KDE setups, Fedora's implementation felt stable. I didn't encounter random crashes or weird visual bugs. It was polished. One thing that really stood out was how Fedora balanced being cutting-edge without being unstable. I had access to modern kernels, updated drivers, and recent versions of apps, but the system never felt experimental. It felt ready. This is something Windows struggles with, especially lately. Fedora KDE felt like what Windows wants to be but can't quite achieve due to legacy baggage. Privacy was another major win. No telemetry nonsense. No ads in the start menu. No background processes spying on me. The computer felt like it belonged to me again. Over time, I realized something important. The winner wasn't the distro that looked the most like Windows. It was the one that behaved the way Windows users expect, while quietly doing everything better. Fedora KDE didn't survive because it copied Windows. It survived because it respected the user. It respected my time, my hardware, and my intelligence. It let me work, customize, and explore without getting in my way. By the end of this experiment, I had no desire to go back. Windows suddenly felt loud, heavy, and intrusive. Fedora KDE felt calm, fast, and focused. That's when I knew. After trying every major Windows-like Linux distro, only one truly survived long-term daily use. Not because it pretended to be Windows, but because it evolved past it. If you're a Windows user thinking about switching to Linux and you want familiarity without frustration, my advice is simple. Don't just look for something that looks like Windows. Look for something that works better than Windows while still feeling natural. For me, that was Fedora KDE, and once you experience it, Windows stops feeling like home and starts feeling like a place you used to live.